Hello, I'm Nobby. Welcome to my workshop. What I'm attempting to make here is a Morse taper 0. This will be a sort of an arbor that I can use in the tailstock of my Wizard micro lathe. This is the if I can get the info. This is the tailstock itself. So I've already set this up in the lathe, and I use the Morse taper on the tailstock chuck that came with it to set the angle. The angle seems to be basically the same as most other Morse tapers. I've only ever cut Morse tapers before, really to make adapters to use in the Myford lathes to put things like centre drills and countersink drills into, which were quite successful. You can see I've already machined part of this down. I'm very close to this being a good fit, but I'd like this to go into the Morse taper in the tailstock just a little bit more, so I will probably need to take just another couple of passes along here. But I also wanted to show you the setup that I've got to do this, because the problem is that bringing the lathe tool into something in a very small diameter, if I can swing the camera around so I can show you, the problem that I'm usually faced with here is that the top slide, the control handle here, if I'd got the revolving dead center, which you can't see now, the revolving dead center mounted directly into the tailstock, even with a long extension on the quill here, the winding handle here hits the tailstock. So what I've done is, in between the quill of the tailstock and the revolving center, I've put a Morse taper 2 to Morse taper 2 extension piece, which you can just about see in the background here. So that now gives me enough clearance here to be able to turn the handle here to run it along the length of the workpiece here. As I say, I've already machined part of this down already, but what I will do is I'll just make another light pass for you just along here. I don't know how much of this you're going to actually be able to see, but I didn't make a video of the whole process of doing this because it does take some time, because I'm only making sort of quite light passes basically. But what I want to do now is to make even sort of, if you like, lighter passes, to try and get as smooth a finish as I possibly can. I'm not obviously going to be able to make a finish on this that you would see on one that you actually buy, because they obviously are ground, and I haven't got any facilities to do anything like that at all. When I've made this in the past, I've just tried to make them as nice as I possibly can, and then perhaps go over it with very lightly with a very light file, and perhaps Scotch-Brite, just to smooth the surface as best I can. I have done a quick test fit on this with the tailstock of the Wizard lathe, and it fits nicely. It goes in up to about this far, but I'd like it to go in just a little bit more. Not that it really makes too much difference. It's only in that what I'm aiming to put on the other end of this, I don't want that to have sort of too much stick out basically. So bear with me a moment. I'll just set things up and run a light pass across here again. Okay, so that's, well, sort of a reasonable finish. Obviously nowhere near as good as a ground finish, but there we are. I'll just turn the camera off just for a moment. I'll move everything out of the way, and then we'll try a test fit onto this. Well, I had a little bit of a search around the workshop to find the tin of micrometer blue. I couldn't, like most things, I couldn't remember where I put it. So I'm just going to very lightly put some. I'm using a cotton bud because I don't know from experience, but I know that if you get this on your fingers, it takes a bit of cleaning off. So we put a bit on here. What took me most of the time was actually to get the lid off the tin. It's such an awkward thing that it comes in. Anyway, there we are. So I've blued that up. Very careful not to make a mess of everything. And we'll give this a try and see what sort of contact I've got on it. Without getting the thing stuck on. Well, that probably shows it best where it's wiped it round onto that part. When it looks, I've got contact literally from here to about here mostly, not so much that end, but I think having contact here, which is, you know, almost sort of 2/3 of the length of this, is going to be fine on the sort of larger diameter part here. But that sort of looks to me to be okay. I think that's going to be all right. See a bit more there, but where it's actually pushed it round, I mean, I think that's going to be okay, so I'm sort of reasonably happy with that. What I'll do now is, as the surface isn't too bad, I'm just going to give that a nice clean up with I think just a bit of Scotch-Brite, just to sort of give that a slightly better clean up. Make sure that's in reasonable focus for you. So I'll just carry on with that. I think that's, you know, probably enough to show you at this stage. I will need to machine the other end, but what I'm going to do, obviously taking this out of the chuck, the danger of, you know, what I was thinking of doing is moving this out a little bit more to do a taper on the other end, to take a little drill chuck. I saw on a video a little while, the problem is that by doing that I might sort of possibly lose concentricity between the bar, because this is obviously not ground stock, and the taper itself. I saw on another channel where somebody had actually marked on the face of the jaw and on the workpiece, and they said that would actually re-center the workpiece in exactly the same position. So how well that works, I don't know, but I'm going to give that a try. What I'll probably do is mark this in a couple of positions. I can only really do this with perhaps with a Sharpie pen, but if I mark it in a couple of positions, that hopefully may get this part back in the same position again. But I suppose what I can do, well, I've got to obviously test this out with a clock gauge as well, just to make sure. But what I might try and do in the meantime is get hold of, if I can, a Morse tape 0 to 1 drill adapter, and then I can use that in a 1 to 2 adapter, and then use it in the headstock of the Myford lathe. That should then give me a good registration on this. There's a company I think that do these that I'm going to contact and see whether I can can get hold of one of those, but we'll just have to see what happens. So anyway, I think I'll leave it at there for you for the moment, but what I will do is perhaps bring you back later for sort of machining the other end of this, but we'll see how we go. Anyway, thanks for joining me again, and bye bye for now. Well, I've machined the taper here. This is a Morse taper 0, and that was machined from a piece of 3/8 of an inch round stock. But what I wanted to do with this is to use this as an arbor for a drill chuck for the Wizard lathe. So what I needed to do was reverse this round and then machine a suitable taper on this side. I did try to find a Morse taper 0 arbor that already had this taper on it, but doesn't appear to be anything like that available. The only ones I could find were ones, I think, with a B10 taper, which I could have got a chuck for, but the chuck size I think might have been a bit too large and a bit out of proportion to the lathe itself. Now the lathe came with a chuck, this one, and it's on a Morse taper 0 here, and the end of that's got a screw thread which is used to adjust the jaws, but I don't know if you can see here clearly. The jaws are very uneven, and I can't manage to get these to work evenly. I don't know what's happened inside this, but obviously this is not really going to be suitable, and I can't get this apart. I think it possibly the back section comes apart. You see there's two little holes in here, and I imagine there's a key that could be used to undo them, but try as I may, I can't just release this. It just seems to be seized into position. So this chuck is not going to be any use to me at all. So what I'm going to use is this very nice American-made Jacobs chuck. I think this is a 1A size, and this is really nice because it's made out of stainless steel, and I think that's going to match into the little Wizard lathe really nicely. It does look sort of a quite a beautiful thing really, so I think this will be suitable for it and will be in the right sort of proportion. Now to machine this side, of course, there obviously is a problem, because I can't mount this into the chuck because the taper is already here. So what I tried to find was a Morse taper 0 to Morse taper 1 drill adapter, which I could then use in a 1 to 2 adapter, and then that could be fitted directly into the spindle nose of the Myford lathe, which is Morse taper 2. I couldn't find one at a reasonable price. There was only one company that listed anything like that, but they didn't have them in stock. But they did say they could get one for me from someone else, but it was one that was I don't know how it would be described. It was super hardened, and it was going to be incredibly expensive, and considering this would probably only be used once or twice, I didn't really think it was worth the investment. So I had to find another means of holding this into the Myford chuck while I machine this taper down. Easy enough to find set the angle, because when I set this one up, it was quite easy to set this in the sort of normal method of adjusting the tool post to that angle and then clocking along the surface to get it accurate. So that was quite easy to do. Now to set the required angle, I use this. I've had this for quite a number of years. It came with a little attachment I bought, which was a cross drilling attachment, and it had a similar chuck to this mounted on it. So you see that will mount on there. I'm not going to push it right on so I don't lock it in, but a similar chuck to this one was mounted on it, and then this end went through a couple of bearings so that you could set up a cross drilling attachment. So all I needed to do basically was to mount this in the chuck, and then use the same process to adjust the angle of the compound of the lathe, this bit, so that I could machine that angle. But still the problem of actually holding this piece of the piece of material in position. Now I'll swing the camera around to the little lathe and show you how I discovered I could do it. Bear with me just a second. Well, I puzzled around with this for a while, and then it had a light bulb moment. It suddenly occurred to me what I could do was use the quill from the wizard lathe to use as an adapter, because obviously this part will fit into here, and all I needed to do was to sort of wind the quill right out to pull the quill out. Of course the quill is a parallel item anyway, and then mount that into the Myford lathe chuck, enabling me to machine this part here, and that worked out perfectly successful. So now this can be mounted into the little chuck here, and then that mounted in, and I've got a nice drill chuck, which, like the original one, is in proportion to the lathe itself. So I'm really happy with that. That's going to really work out nicely for the little lathe. I didn't want to put a really large chuck on here. Obviously if I'd have bought the Morse taper 0 to I think B10 taper, I would have ended up with quite a large diameter chuck, and it would have worked obviously, but it wouldn't have looked nice with the lathe. And I'm guessing that this little chuck is probably quite old anyway. May not be as old as the lathe itself, but obviously it's not a sort of a modern one, so I think that's going to be really nice. I mentioned that one of the first things I needed to make was a chuck key for the 4-jaw chuck that came with the lathe. I did actually make one. I'm sorry I didn't actually film that. I just did that as a little project off camera. So what did I do with it? Here we are. So I made a little chuck key, and I'm sure you've seen these being made before. This was just a very, very simple turning job. Just a bit. I think this is also 3/8 material. I just turned the end down here a little bit, and then I used my a square ER32 collet block to hold it in the milling machine while I just machined the faces here. It was just a matter of working out what the size of the hole here was, and then sort of dividing that down into the diameter at the end here. But that turned out quite nice, and I've got a nice fit on that as well. So that's, if you like, the first two little projects that I made first, basically so I could take the jaws out of the chuck and give it a good clean up. That's what I really wanted to do, give it a nice clean and sort of lubricate it all around. So that's this was project 1, and then project 2. This you saw me machining that taper. And I mean, machining that, it was just a repeat of this one really, so I didn't think it was worth showing that turning operation as well. I think this taper is I'm not sure what the number is. I think it's one of the J tapers on that end. Can't remember what the number of it was, but that sort of came out quite nicely. So things are getting a bit nearer to completion, to a state where I can actually put the little lathe into use and give it some tests. I want to set this up with the pulley onto a larger pulley onto a counter shaft. I've ordered another pulley for it. The first one I got was just not suitable, so I've ordered another one. So hopefully then I can get this all set up and then mount it onto perhaps a wooden base as a sort of a permanent thing. And now I'm going to sort of try and find a little 3-jaw chuck for it. I mentioned I probably would like to try and get possibly a little MT0 Unimat chuck, because they're very, very small in diameter. This one is 3¼ inch diameter, which in a way is, if anything, a little bit too big, because if you wind the jaws out too far, the ends of the jaws hit the ways of the lathe. The ideal thing with the little Unimat chucks is that they are very, very tiny in diameter, and you can wind the jaws out quite a long way before they'd ever interfere with the ways here, meaning you could put reasonable diameter material in it as well. So that's the next thing, just sort of keep an eye out for one of those, if I can find one somewhere. But there are lots of other things I want to make for it. I'm going to make a face plate, going to make that out of aluminium, so I'll try and show that project when I get round to making it. But just make little bits and pieces as I go along with it. It's going to be a lot of very, very interesting projects to build. So there we are. I apologise for not showing you all the machining processes that I did, but as I say, I'm sort of repeating the same thing over again basically, so I'm sure you understand. Anyway, thanks for joining me in the workshop again, and again obviously thanks for all the nice comments I'm receiving and nice contacts I'm making with other YouTubers that do similar things in the workshop to myself. So there we are. Thanks again, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.